Do I agree that Dagon scales to Toji? No.
Mhm. No? Okay. Why not?
Yeah, I think Toji holds back.
Okay, can you prove that?
Okay, let's grab the panel where Megumi perceives and like the guys perceived Toji, but then they get speed blitzed. So he holds back. Give me a second.
You're gonna reference him fighting Dagon and then him saying Megami. I think those are two distinct like perspectives. I think perception does rely on the adjusted speed of the user, not the adjusted speed, actually the like
One
viewpoint from where you're
moment.
viewing. I'll see what you're gonna say.
Wait, is it Dagon versus who again?
Kenjaku.
Kenjaku. All right, let's see this. We're gonna have to bet on him. Yeah, I
Do you
think it's
agree that
easier to see
do you
things.
agree that they
Yeah,
can perceive Toji's movements?
yeah, I think it's easier to see things further away than it is to see them closer to you.
No, when I mean by see movements, do you agree that they're able to perceive the speed of Toji's movements?
Yeah, did you not just hear what I said?
Okay, well, I'm asking like that specifically because like seeing Toji and actually seeing
Yeah,
the
no,
speed of
I'm
his
saying it's a
movements
non
are
sequitur
different.
because I think that seeing things for the ability to see things farther away than you is easier to see them closer to you. If something's close to you, right, it's going to be harder to, actually like, I guess, be able to fully aware of it in terms of perception than it is if it's farther away from you. I can give you some examples if you want, like a plane. You can see a plane flying, but realistically, if you were next to the plane's going to blow past you. But when you're farther away from it, you can see it going, however many miles per hour. Same thing with a car. You see a car from a racetrack, you can see it going fully, full circle. You'll see it. You'll be able to see its entire course of movement. But if you're just right next to it, it'll blow right by you. You won't be able to track. It's just easier to see things further away from yourself than right next to you.
I don't know if that matters because these guys are very close in distance, and
Can you
if anything,
wait,
when
I want
Megumi can't
wait, wait, wait,
perceive,
wait, wait,
if
wait, wait, wait,
anything, when
wait,
Megumi,
wait,
can you
wait,
give me a
wait,
second,
wait,
retard?
wait. No, I can't
You
because you
you
made a
just
claim.
can you give me
Made a
let me
claim. I'm not.
respond.
No, no,
Shut up.
no,
Let me respond.
no, no,
So
no,
what
no. You
happens
made a
is
claim.
when Megumi
I'm
isn't
gonna put
able
the
to
burden on
perceive
you to prove that
Toji,
they're actually
Toji's
close.
even
And then
farther
you can
away.
continue. You can continue now. I put the burden on you that they were close.
Yeah, sure. It's easy.
Okay. Yeah. By the way, this is from when Toji blitzes
Look at the bottom
Megami.
panel. Look at the bottom panel.
Okay, so Dagon is unquantifiably away from.
I don't need an exact quantification. We can obviously just gauge
Yeah.
our eyes with distance perception that this thing is going to be much
Distance
closer than whatever
perception.
happened with Megumi.
I didn't know. I disagree. I disagree. I don't think we can tell.
You don't think we can tell at all? You don't think we can perceive distance at all?
That's not what I said.
Because what I'm telling you is we can use our perception of distance to say that this thing is obviously reasonably close and this thing is
Yeah,
far
that's
away.
your perception of
Obviously,
distance.
if you
Why
see
are
an
you?
airplane in
Why are
the
you
air
trying?
that's much farther
Wait,
away
wait,
from
wait, wait,
you than like an ice cream man who's like right across the door. Like you're in a room and then there's an
Yeah,
ice cream man like right across the door.
that's the presupposition is that that's analogous, right? Which is what's in question. Can you really perceive the distance between them two in a degree that you can actually make a claim on it? Because that's what you're doing. I'm
We
saying that
can
I don't
I'm
think you
not
have
saying we
really.
can perceive the
I'm asking
exact
why.
distance. I'm saying we can perceive a general
That's not
idea of
what
the
I'm saying.
distance.
That's not what I'm saying, bro.
Then you have to
Why?
make your
Yeah, why
points more
can't we do
clear.
that? Why can't we do that? That's what's in question. You're just repeating the claim.
Why
Why
can
can't
we
we do that?
perceive?
Okay, you're not understanding. All right. If you do want to move on, we can move on.
I mean, why would I move on if you can't make your point clear? Why,
Like I
why
did for
would
the
we
record.
be
I
able to
mean,
perceive what?
future. Do you think you have enough? Like, you're not even the judge, but do you think you can? Um, do you think like you've understood my point? Do you get my point?
Wait, are you
You
calling
said like
to?
two
Are you
words. How
calling
am I
the
supposed to hear your
question? Wait,
point?
are you? Jesus Christ, are you? I wasn't really. I was listening somewhere. Are you calling the question the perception shit?
Yeah, he's saying like he has a good enough gauge of the distance there to say that he can make the claim that when Toji blitzes Megami, it's further away from where Dagon and Toji are fighting. So the distance perception point that I brought up doesn't matter, and I'm asking him why and why does he have the ability to do such thing that he can cross compare distances, via his perception. Like why does his perception have that capability?
You want
And
a scientific explanation? Why do you
Oh,
need
oh
that?
yeah,
Isn't
then
that something you can
then
just
the
see?
verdict would, yeah, then you want him to prove that then.
So you
yeah,
want me to
so
prove that I can actually perceive distances? Like I can perceive the
that's
like
not
the
my
difference between different
that's not
distances?
you're not understanding. All right, we can move on. If you think that's what I mean, then yeah, we can move on. But I don't. We
Okay,
can
you're
move on.
saying like it's in question
We
that
can just move
this.
on. We can just move on, bro.
I'm
You
not gonna
obviously
debate
don't
you if I
understand my
can't
point.
understand your point.
It's clear that I've explained it, I think 3 or 4 times now. You still have gotten the wrong, understanding. I'm not going to explain it anymore. I'm not obligated to.
Okay,
I
then
have
I don't want
gave
to
you the
debate
chair.
you. Like what?
And you can concede if you want.
That's not a concession. It would be a concession if I granted that you won,
I'm.
which would be a
Oh my
previously
God,
disagreed
it's an
upon
indirect.
thing.
It's an indirect concession if you just don't want to continue the debate. But
It's not
it's
an
fine if
indirect
you do it as a.
concession. That's just
It's
an
fine if
ending
you
of
don't
the
do it as
debate.
a. It's just like what my perception of concessions, are derived as. But if you want to, quit, that's fine. You can.
Nigga, what? Like you're putting into question like the fact that I have the ability to see between distances of like large variety. Like
If you think
you've
so.
like what? I don't understand why you're being like so like bad faith.
If you think so, bro, we can move on. Do you want to move on or not?
How am I supposed to have a conversation if I can't understand what you're saying though?
Oh my God. I'm telling you, I've repeated it about 3 or 4 times. If you if you
Because you
think you
suck
have the
at
good
explaining
understanding,
things.
okay, I guess you can think that. That's perfectly fine for you to think. I disagree obviously, but I'm not going to debate about whether or not you can understand my shit or how good I am about explaining things. That's kind of redundant to the topic. Um, I'll repeat it one last time if you want. Do you want to just kind of like circle through what we've been through and I'll like try to, understand where you went wrong or maybe I went wrong? You want to do that?
Yeah, I explain what you're trying to ask me again.
Yeah, but you circle through what we've gone through first. I just want to make sure that I have the order of events correct.
Um, you said that when things are farther away, they're easier to see. Whereas if something's close, obviously it's harder to see because if it's closer to you, it's covering less distance to go past you, so you have less time to see it, right? So obviously you have more time to perceive it, which makes it easier to perceive. Um, and I'm saying off of this, when Megami gets perception blitzed, he's likely much farther away. So, um, under like your viewpoint, Megami got blitzed because Toji's holding back in speed.
You done?
Yeah. So what's your
Okay.
question?
Yeah. I feel like I said it multiple times, but can you just send me the chapter of this? Definitely feel like
One,
that's a question.
um, 109 to 111.
Okay, what chapter is that specific thing? Because I think I'm having a recollection. That's just not what happens.
What specific
Uh,
thing? Them seeing Dagon or
no, no,
Megami
no,
getting
no.
blitzed?
Megami getting blitzed.
111.
Okay, that's 111. All right. Poste pari, patistone, muchas veces. Yeah, I mean, you're just the biggest liar of all time. What the hell?
Also, that one another thing,
You
like
are the biggest liar of all time.
another yeah,
Biggest liar.
another thing. We can see exactly how
Biggest liar
close
of all
they
time.
are in like this
No, we can't.
panel. So
That's
they
what's
got
important.
blitzed at like a much closer distance, if anything.
That's is what's in question.
Yeah, but you said you were gonna repeat your question.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'm just reading. Is this the exact sequence of events?
The first panel is the aftermath. The second panel is beforehand, which is at like the start of the chapter. It's like a few pages of a difference.
Okay.
Pages apart, not of a difference.
Yeah. Okay.
So I have two contentions. One, the aforementioned thing.
What's it called? Like, why does your perception have the capability to view the viewpoints to get like a accurate gauge of cross gauging them or
Wait, one
cross
second.
referencing
One
them?
second.
Okay.
You said why does your perception have the ability to see the cross gauge?
No. I'm questioning whether or not your perception has the ability to, make a description of the distance accurate enough to where you can cross-reference them, because that's what you're doing ultimately, right? You're cross-referencing these two distances in order to say that, he got blitzed in this instance and he didn't in this instance, which is why he's holding back, right? Which is why we lead to the conclusion that he's holding back. And that's what I'm putting into question. Does your perception have this ability in the viewpoint of the manga, right, to have this like accurate description of the distance to be able to cross-reference these? That's my question.
Panel where they're all looking at Toji and like how he's sharpening his blade, they're away, whereas when Toji is charging towards Megumi, he would get up right close to him. So there's actually like a distance between the two, whereas in that picture they're not like side by side, whereas Toji's actually charging directly at Megumi to throw him out of the building. This is such a shitty thing to skepticize. Toji literally runs up directly at, like, Megumi.
All right. I'm back. Just repeat that. I wasn't here for it.
Do you agree that when Megumi and the gang are looking at Toji and they're perceiving his movements, they're obviously not directly in front of him, whereas when Megumi is charging, when Toji is charging at Megumi, he gets directly in front of him and then throws him out of the building.
They are. What?
They're
all
directly
start
next to him, like they're within
No,
arm's
they're
length.
not. No. They're not within arm's length, but they're in front of him.
Okay, I mean, one, I'm like sort of skeptical on that. I disagree with that, but I don't even think that matters. Do you agree? Do you agree that at least that? Do you agree at least that when Toji? Wait. I'm still talking.
What you're skeptical of, right, retard? I'll attack that first. I'm sorry, that was a shot at you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. But I just want to address what you're skeptical of first before, we kind of get into this stuff, because I feel like it's kind of just weird to, just move on with you still being skeptical of things. So Toji's walking away from Dagon's dead body. We see he's walking straight ahead from his dead body. In the scan previously, you'll see that, you see that, where they are relative to Dagon's dead body, you'll see that he's just in front of them. And we know Megumi is looking up. So
I'm talking. No. I'm talking about when they're still inside of the domain expansion, when they're all looking at him while he's sharpening his sword, his three-piece staff, and then he's charging towards Dagon and hitting him. That's what I'm talking about. With the Megumi thing in that instance, I'm saying he would be within arm's length of Megumi, because how is he going to throw him out of the building if he doesn't make contact with him? How is he going to touch him? Right? So I'm saying based on that alone, he would be closer there. So since he's within arm's length, there's no way he could be any closer. So if he's getting perception blitz there, when in your situation there's a possibility that hold on, I'm still talking.
You realize that
hold on. Stop.
Oh my god.
Stop. I'm saying that in your scan, they could be significantly further away for all we know, or they could be relatively close. I'm not gonna say they're within arm's length, because if we look at the panel, they can't be within arm's length if we look at the size of their arms and how they're drawn. So it's not possible for that. But even if they were, hypothetically, which they're not, literally Toji is as close as he can possibly be to Megumi here, and Megumi isn't able to perceive his movements, so he gets perception blitz there at like the closest he could possibly be.
Done?
Yes or no? How's that a shot?
I just wasn't listening. I just wasn't listening. Are you done?
Okay, if you weren't listening, do you want me to repeat myself?
I want you to go point by point, because you brought up 3 different instances. I want you to go point by point.
Okay, I'll just make this very brief. when he blitzes Megumi and he throws him out of the building, he has to touch him so we can throw him out of the building. That means he's
Yes.
within arm's length and he grabs him. That's as close as he
Yes.
could possibly be. If he gets perception
Yes.
blitz there, and your scan, if he could be any other distance farther away from Megumi, he would get perception blitz at pretty much like at the close range no matter what. So doesn't really matter.
Is okay.
Okay.
that-
wait. Hold
is that
on.
all you
Wait. I have a
said?
question. I think I
Is that
just
all you said?
misunderstood your point completely.
Is that all you said?
Wait. I have another question. I think I just
No.
misunderstood your point
I know
completely.
I know you have a
That's
question.
all. That's all I said.
Can
That's all I said. But I think I've just misrepresented your
No.
argument. Can
Let
I
me just
get
repeat.
clarification?
No. Let me just repeat what you said to me, and I want to make sure that that is actually what you said. So you're telling me, the fact that he blitzes Toji or he blitzes Megumi means he has to be close to him, right? And the fact that Megumi couldn't track that or couldn't understand that, means he's getting perception blitzed from a close distance, right? That's what you're telling me, right?
Yeah, he got perception blitz at a close distance. But if you're saying like he has to be at a close distance to blitz him, that's not anything I said. No.
Yeah.
I think I've just misunderstood your argument. You're saying that since they're possibly a farther distance away, because of that, inside the domain, if they're perceiving Toji's movements, that doesn't really mean much, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll explain this contingent off the
One
fact that
moment.
they're far distance away, and you didn't really attack that when I brought it up earlier, and you didn't really attack the analogies that I brought up earlier for the perception being farther away point. So I feel like it'd be kind of counterintuitive if we want to maximize time to go back to that. But yeah, I just don't think we should go back to that.
Okay. There's another panel where I'm pretty sure he gets blitzed at a very close range.
Because when Dagon
Are you-
dies, I just want to make this clear. I think the distance that they're in, or I think the island that they're in, is bigger than the room that they're in. Because obviously there's more ground to be covered with the domain. Because they're in an island. When they're, you would obviously agree an island is bigger than a room, right?
I don't think you could prove that's a full-size island.
I think there's just some scans. I think we can just, pick some
even if
visually.
it's
Wait.
an island, even if it's an island,
Yeah.
if they're at like a comparable distance, I just don't really do much.
No, because I think that when they get out of the domain, the space between them is a lot closer than when they were in the domain. Because I think in the domain they were in the area of an island, and out of the domain, they're in the area of a confined room.
What if they're just closer in a larger area? Why would that matter?
What if they're just but that's the thing. That's what you have to prove. I'm just saying that from what we know, they're in an island, and what's it called? Their perspective shots, right, are going to be different in terms of distance because they're in a larger area.
Wait,
right?
are you aware that being on an island versus being in like your room at home, if you guys are both within 5 feet of each other, that's still the same distance, right? So
Yes,
I mean,
yes, I'm aware.
if you think
Yes,
that matters,
yes, I'm aware.
if you think
Yes,
that matters,
I'm
I think you would
I
have.
answered your
Since I
question.
didn't make any
your
claims, right?
question.
I think you would have to prove that they're a farther distance away if you think that matters.
I answered your question.
How did you answer my question?
But yes, if they're five distance, meters away, it's a relevant thing. Like it wouldn't change. Like even if they're 5 distance away in an island, 5 meters away in an island, if they're 5 meters away in a room, it doesn't matter because it's still 5 meters. But repeat what you said just now.
Okay. So essentially, I didn't make any claims for that. I more so just said I more so just asked the question. So essentially, if you think, I more so just asked the question on essentially, I think you would have to prove. I'm not sure if that's true, but
It's true.
basically, can you prove that they're a farther distance away from one another just because they're on an island, right? I think you would have to prove that if you're going to be making that claim.
No, that wasn't my claim.
I don't think
that wasn't my claim. My claim was simply that they're a far distance away.
No, I'm saying if. I'm not saying that was.
No, I know, but this is irrelevant because you got to realize how we got here. You were claiming that, Toji blitzed Megami and he wasn't blitzing him before when they were, away from him and fighting someone else. And I told you, yeah, because, they're not actively close to Toji right now. They're away from him, they're far away from him, right? They're not hand to hand, they're close to each other. They're far away from him watching a fight that's far away from themselves, right? Which is why, when you are farther away from something, you have like a, perception problem. Then to that, you try to prove, and we can ask everyone in this VC, you tried to prove that they were close to each other. That's what you tried to do with this scan. I can react to it right now. So you made the claim that, hey, and you're saying that they're far away, right? Because they're like not in harm reach or anything. But this Dagon scan proved that they're close. And that's when I was questioning your perception of like cross-referencing scans. So now you can't just like flip the burden on me. I'm not that stupid. I'm not Calamity. I'm not Jaw. I'm not going to let you flip the burden back onto me. You made the claim that they weren't close.
It's
by
not a
sending
burden
this-
flip. If you also make a claim, I can hold you to that burden of
Oh
proof.
my God. Hold
A
on.
burden flip would be essentially a burden. Okay. Bruh. Okay, I don't need to do all this. This is just a rabbit hole. I can just prove that Toji isn't actually necessarily
that.
going on it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You're dropping it. All right.
No, I was just talking to myself, bro. Okay. Yeah.
talking to them?
So that's not a burden flip. A burden flip is if someone's on the affirmative, they force you to prove your belief, right? If you are skeptical and you're not on the affirmative, right, you can ask me a question and then hold me to the burden of proof, right? However, if you make a claim while I'm on the affirmative, you can still be held to the burden of proof. That's not a burden flip. And another thing, I could still be held to my burden while you're held to your burden, right? Because we don't have the exact same burden. We have different burdens.
No, we do.
No, because my claim was that they're farther away. No, Megami is farther away when he gets blitzed when he gets blitzed by Toji when they're outside of Dagon's domain after Toji just kills Dagon. I'm gonna drop that because I don't think that's true because as I've just said, I've essentially indirectly conceded to that because I just realized that Toji would be within arm's length and he would be within like touching distance, right? So I'm gonna drop that. I'm gonna drop that.
Yeah, okay.
However,
I'll just
right,
prove that.
you made the
Yeah,
claim.
yeah,
You
yeah.
made the claim that you made the claim that they're far away, far away from Toji while they're inside of the domain. So I want you to prove that.
Yeah, I'll do. They're not an arm's length. I'll prove that because you just made the claim.
No. You said far away, not arm's length. Just to be clear.
Yeah, that's what I define as far away. It's all subjective. Like what? You fucking
You
retard.
think being far away is only within arm's length? I don't think you're being honest here.
That's okay. That's not what I said. But if
You
wanna,
defined
that's right.
as not being within arm's length. That's what you just said, yes. So since you've just said that, right, I think you're being disingenuous because I don't think anyone in their right mind would say that just being not within arm's length makes you far away. You could be a foot away from someone and be far away. That's ridiculous.
Sorry, repeat that. I wasn't listening.
Yeah, so you just said that you define being far away as not being within arm's length. I think you're being disingenuous. I don't think anyone would say if you're a foot away, no, let's say 2 feet away from someone, that you're far away. I think that's stupid. But I think something more reasonable would be to say if you were like a mile away from someone. That's saying that we are
We
a mile
can't
away from
quantify
anyone here.
that. We can't quantify
That would be
can't
far
quantify
away,
that.
right? Now,
We can't
I don't need an
quantify
exact quantification, but it's
We
more
can't
so something
quantify that.
that is colloquial usage, right? If
What is
colloquially,
the colloquial
we know
usage?
we know exactly how most people would define something being far away and how something being
What is it?
close, right?
What
I
is
think
it?
you're being
No, what is
disingenuous
it?
here. I don't think
What
you're
is
being
it?
honest.
What is it? No. What is it being far away? Tell me. Colloquially. What do you think?
Far away, well, it would depend on the context, but obviously within this context, I think if you're able to see a fight, right, but you're far away, I would assume that you're not within arm's length, right? And if you're saying that not only not within arm's length, I would say that let's say like I don't know, 50 feet away is something reasonable for far away.
Okay, how are you going to measure that in a manga panel?
How are you going to measure
do
that?
Yeah, how are you going to do that in a manga panel? Because you're talking
Well,
about a manga panel.
Well, there's things within manga panels that we do know. We know about the size of water. We know about the size of tiles.
No,
and
we
can
don't.
compare that to
No, we
real
don't.
life. objects,
How are you
right?
gonna do that with here?
We
Okay,
can
do
say
that
we
with
can
here.
say since this manga takes place within a subway station, right? If we look at the size of a tile within a subway station,
They're
we
in an
can
island right now.
the average length or what size is typically used for tiles within a subway station in Japan to say this is the length of the tiles,
They're
and
in
then
an
we can
island
just
right now.
add multiple tiles
They're in an
based on
island
how
right now.
many we've seen.
They're in an island right now. They're not in a subway station.
No, I understand that. The point was just to explain to you how you could actually measure distance in a manga
No.
panel.
Okay, no, Haram. It's obviously contextualized to this moment. When you were making that claim, you were saying the way we could do this, right, colloquially, in terms of what we're seeing here is X thing. You're not actually giving me any metric to go off of. If you don't even have a metric of how to view
It's not an
large
exact
or
metric. It's
far
more
and
so something
close.
that you'll observe through
Yeah,
communication with
and
other
how?
people and
Okay, yeah,
comments
and how are you going to
having
determine
how
that?
things are described.
How are you going to determine that? Yeah, how are you going to determine that? What with communicating people lets you determine that? Explain that to me.
Yeah, so you know what pattern recognition is, right? By
Yeah.
consistently noticing this pattern that whenever people say something is far away, they don't mean within 2 feet
So they're
of something,
okay, so that's
right?
circular reasoning. They're
That would
presupposing that they them
wait,
being
wait,
far
wait,
away
wait. How do
is true.
you call it as being circular maybe after I speak? But give me a second. So,
No,
right,
I'm not going to do
obviously,
that.
if we're talking about like watching a show, right, or a concert, if you say we're far away from Kanye West while he's on stage, most people would say that's not within 2 feet, because obviously that is within perspective of being closer to like front row or
What the
directly
fuck are you
front row,
talking about,
right?
buddy? What are you talking about?
That's not far away. Most people would define that as close. Far away would be closer to the back seats, maybe 50,
Okay,
100 feet away from Kanye West, right?
okay.
There's
So
no
there is a
exact
mathematical
quantification,
quantification
but
then.
with speech,
So there
with
is a.
with
You
pattern
just
recognition, we can notice exactly how people will determine it. Not exactly. I'll just say how. Remove the word exact. It's not a
um.
mathematical quantification. I know it varies, but it's a general perception thing that you
Okay.
observe through patterns.
Okay. So tell me again. I mean, I just feel like you just aren't getting my. Do you want to move on?
I've given you a general like idea, right? I
Okay. Yeah.
mean,
You
if you
basically
think
just
that's
said there's no
circular, that's fine. You haven't really defined, you haven't really proved your claim. So that's just a burden that you of proof that you haven't fulfilled, and then we can move on to
haram,
the next thing.
haram,
'Cause,
haram. The problem is, right, your definition of how to view things of far and small in a manga is based off of people's perception, right? That's how patterns are built off of what people perceive and how they want to express that perception, right, of a distance. And you're saying that with that pattern recognition, we can determine how far these things are, right? Correct?
yeah, a general idea, yes.
Okay. So isn't that presupposing that the perception on these distances is correct?
That these perceptions on these distances are correct. Um, no, because if you do have
No.
like some actual proof, right? Let's say I'm
Okay.
sure these people have their heights like located in the data book,
Hmm.
or we can just have an average Japanese man or woman's arm like put here so
Okay.
we can make some likelihood.
Why would you
If
do that?
if hold on. If yeah, average like Japanese woman's arm is this size, and we use the
Besides,
panels and we say that her arm is only taking up this distance in relation to the entire manga panel, we can say that she would need this many arms. We can just estimate this many arms is needed to cover the
um,
distance between the two.
perspective
Right?
shots are different, Haram. They
So,
don't.
well, give
Manga
me a second.
panels don't abide by perspective. Or sorry, what you're talking about is pixel calcing, right? Pixel calcing doesn't take into account for perspective shots, which is obviously what this is. It's a perspective shot. What I send in chat. My whole thing is, by far away, I mean they're not in a viewpoint to where they're close. When I define as close is being close to someone in the regard of either arm's distanced or what's it called? A few at least inches away from. I would say, like, I guess for this context, there's no really
There's a hedge.
benchmark. There's a hedge. Okay, define hedging for me.
Yeah, when you change your initial argument or belief that you proposed, right?
Okay, what was my belief?
Initially you proposed that it's just arm's length. If you're not within arm's length, you're far away.
That's not what I
Now you
proposed.
said it's within a few feet. That's not true.
It's not. No, I just said that it wasn't because we don't have a benchmark to view feet here. If you actually let me finish. Thing was, Haram, when I cut you off, I have a good reason to. When you cut me off, you're just fucking retarded, right? The thing is, I wasn't going to say feet because I knew that was wrong because there's no way to measure feet here. I guess I'll define close as, the domain, Megumi's domain. Because that covers more than himself, his arm distance, and the other person who's outside of his range. So it's more than him, a few feet away, or not a few feet away, but a few, I guess, steps away, his arm length, and another person. That's how long his domain covers. And if you want the source for that, it's right here. So I would say that relative to himself, right, relative to himself in this position, it would be, I guess, far. If we want to define, as you said, close as, what people consider close, like pattern recognition. Your own definition helps me. So I don't see how, and by the way, you can go to my scans if you want. It's just kind of obvious that they are not, close to these guys.
Just to be clear, I want to make sure you understand what exactly is the panel that you were looking at when we're saying that they're like far away, right? Because I can send it to you. Just that
I know. You don't need to send it to me. I sent it already. What do you mean I can send it to you?
No, the per message you just responded to doesn't have the exact panel we've been talking
That's
about.
when Dagon dies. That's when Dagon dies. What are you talking about?
Yes, but that's not the panel that I'm talking about.
are you
For
talking
specifically the distance away.
They're,
we've
they're,
been talking about
Rob, my whole point is that they can perceive him when he's far away, right? But they can't perceive him when he's close. Right? That's your argument for him holding back, right? And right, correct?
Oh no, I already dropped that. You don't need
What?
to worry about that.
Wait, you don't think he's holding back?
I dropped that to you.
You don't think he's holding back?
No, I've dropped specifically that point, but I will say I will make another point later on. I think Toji's power is inconsistent. I don't think we can gauge exactly
Okay.
his power.
If you've dropped the holding back point, then I feel like this is kind of not relevant at all. We can, if you've dropped
No, I'm dropping. No, initially what I was dropping was the fact that they were further away. That's why, if they're further away and they're getting blitzed, then it would just show that Toji's holding back. However, I'm not dropping the entire belief that Toji is holding back.
Yeah. If you're dropping
I'm about to respond to what you just said about perspective shots, and then we can move on.
I didn't really. No, Haram. I just want to get this clear that if we wait, Haram. I want to get this clear. If you just don't think that these Dagon fight things can be, I have a question. What are you gonna use to say that he's holding back? Like, are you gonna use the Dagon fight? Because if that's
No,
what
I'm
you
gonna
do,
use the Megami fight.
okay, wait. So then we don't need to talk about this any longer. We don't need to talk about the Dagon fight any longer.
Well, I do have to address the Dagon thing, so nothing goes through. Let me just
What?
address it real quick.
I didn't make
So,
bro. Okay.
No, because you said something which could end up making the debate contentious if I don't address it,
How?
because it's
Can you
not
explain to me?
direct. It's not direct. It's sort of a long story, but that perspective shots thing you said, I do have to address it. Otherwise, they could literally make this entire debate incon. So you said that manga panels don't account for perspective shots. That's not true.
That's not what I said.
If you mean to, no, that is what you said verbatim. If you mean to say that manga panels don't account for perspective shots 100% accurately in relation to what the real world would have, that's fine, because the real world, we have cameras, advanced technology which can actually do this. However, in manga panels, we just have a writer and an artist who are doing all this by hand, and their perception of perspective shots may not be accurate to reality, or they can be exaggerated, which is fine. However, in manga, what would just happen then is some distances would be a certainty, even if it's unrealistic in the world of manga, like what the distance is between people, right? It's still a certainty that within the manga, this is the distance between them if we look at their arms, because that is like a real world concept, the length of your arms and all that stuff, right? So if we look at the length of Maki's arms, and it's 16 arms between her and Dagon, that's still the distance, that's still the same distance, right? Even if it doesn't apply exactly to how it would in the real world in terms of what it looks like, the distance is still there. That's a certainty. So we can move on.
Yeah, because that wasn't my claim. My claim was that pixel calcs don't take into account for perspective shots. But we can move on to the next thing. I'm guessing like what I
You
brought up
said,
just goes uncontested. But yeah. So what's the other argument for Toji holding back?
yeah. I just wanted just the last thing you said real quick. Even for pixel calcs, they still account for perspective shots.
Why?
It's just not accurate. Like the same thing I said as
Oh,
prior.
okay. What was this? Then I wasn't listening. What's the same thing that you said earlier?
Same thing I said earlier is essentially even if perspective shots are inaccurate in manga because we have someone who isn't maybe the most reliable because they're doing it offhand by their own perception to create these pictures in manga, right? The distances will still be a certainty because that is a real world concept, unless we were to argue that Maki's arms and stuff just change in between panels. But if
No,
that were to
that's
be the
okay.
case,
That's
then
not.
if that were to be the case, then we wouldn't be able to quantify the distance in any manga panel whatsoever, practically pretty much, because there would always be some inaccuracy. So at that point, we would either roll with what I'm saying, where the distance is still going to be a necessity. It's still going to be the
Again,
same amount of distance,
presupposing that
or
they're
we would just have to drop
is
gauging
accurate
distance in
to
manga
the
altogether.
the
Either way,
cost.
I'm still receiving some benefit by doing that, so we can move on to the next thing you
Again,
said.
you're presupposing that the perception of distance is accurate in cross-referencing Maki's arms and the distance that's between them. So, I mean, yeah, I guess if you want to go circular again, we can move on. We can move on. Hello? Alright.
Yeah.
we can
So
we can
yeah.
move on.
So next thing is, do you agree that Toji perception blitzes Megumi in that panel, the one I
He
sent you,
catches him
the
off
first
guard.
panel?
I think it could be an off guard. I think it could. Well, I definitely do think it's a perception blitz, but I don't think it's because Megami is like a perception blitz level below. I think it's because what's it called? I think it's because he was rested or he was trying to catch his breath because they don't really know if he's an enemy or not. So I don't know what he would be on full like what's it called, like perception, I guess, adjusted, because we know your perception does adjust to things that you see. Like to higher speeds, your perception does adjust. So
Okay.
I don't know if his perception is adjusted to that level of combat yet. Like after just finishing the fight, we don't know. So I'm not gonna say that this like is actually like relevant.
Well, I don't
Which
think that
yeah,
matters because okay. Yeah, I don't think that matters
yeah,
because even
you got perception blitzed.
you just said you do think he got perception blitz, but
Yeah,
perception
I
blitz
do.
might not matter.
Yeah, I just don't think it would mean
Yeah,
anything because I
I
do.
heard you. I heard this one.
Mhm.
So with the Megami thing, even later on in the fight, which we see here is Megami is able to perceive Toji's attacks even when he's about to like stab him in the head. He gets close to stabbing him in the head. However, at the end of the fight, he gets perception blitz badly, right? So that is an inconsistency in which even going off of what you said, even if he wasn't initially ready, later on obviously he would be ready, right?
Can
So
you show me these?
so so perceives him here
Where?
and he avoids the attack somewhat. He doesn't just get completely killed. And then
I
I'll
think
show
he's
you
aim
the next
dodging.
panel.
I
I'll
think
show you
he's
the
aim
next
dodging.
panel, which is
I think he's aim dodging.
basically at the end where he gets perception blitzed.
I think he's aim dodging.
You think he's aim dodging? What do you mean?
Do you not know what an aim dodge is? Let's see.
Not exactly, no.
I just fell. What was Kuna's finger? What the hell is going on, Shibuya? Yeah, these scans are loading for me. Oh. I think for the first instance, I think he has.
The first two, hold on, just to be clear, first two are
Yeah,
perception.
sure.
Last one is perception blitz.
The first two are perception. The last one is perception blitz. What the hell is that? Like, first two are him like perceiving him, and the second last one is not perceiving him.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, the first thing I have issues with because I think Megami has extra time to perceive this thing. Like I think that when you're perceiving things, time is obviously in essence. I think with Megami in the first instance, not really being ready to perceive him, right? Because he doesn't know whether or not he's a foe or a friend, right? I think that's different. That's not analogous to this scene because here he knows he's an enemy and he knows he has to dodge the attack. So when he sees him coming farther away, right? Because you agreed the fact that things further away are more easily perceivable than things closer to you. I think it's different. I don't think this is analogous. And let me move on to the second one.
Wait. So you said something about friend versus foe. Why would he think he's a friend here when this guy has literally thrown him out of the building? He's throwing
That
several
wasn't my
attacks at
argument.
him and he's trying to kill him.
That wasn't my argument. We can move on.
Now I understand that. No, okay. Just to be clear, when you said that thing, was that for the first scan that I showed you entirely, or the scans I just sent you?
Uh, I guess for the scans you just sent me, yeah, too. Wait, sorry. I didn't hear your question. I'm not tracking right now because Future just
Okay.
like
So
threw me
you
off.
said that he could be essentially like unaware if he's a friend or a foe, right? And because of that, you wouldn't be necessarily prepared for him to attack him, right? However, he's already been attacked because these panels are after the first panel
Oh,
where
okay,
he's
so
getting
you did
thrown out
not
and
track.
getting attacks thrown at him, right?
Okay, yeah, I just don't think you tracked. And then what was the thing about the like scans? What were you talking about?
What do you mean the scans?
The scans.
What thing
You said
about
something about all the scans.
I said something about all the scans. All I said was the first two are perceiving Toji's movements, and the second one is him being unable to perceive his movements. Now you said that I wasn't tracking and that you didn't make that argument. I don't think that's true because I literally heard the friend versus foe shit. Now if you're saying I didn't attack the fucking like distance gives you more time to perceive things, that's not true because like no, I sorry, that is true. I haven't attacked that yet. However, I'm going to attack that now. He's within arm's length because he's literally thrusting at him. He's literally within arm's length. His end distance where he ended up being, he's literally within like his leg is pretty much touching like Megumi's. Like he's within arm's length with him. He's swinging at him, and then at the end, Megumi swings at him, and then he isn't able to perceive him because his eyes are still at the same position where Toji was,
No,
and then
he
he
says he
moves
can
back,
perceive
and
him.
then
He
and
says he
then
can
Toji
perceive
and then
him.
Megumi says,
He says he
"How
can
the
perceive
hell
him.
did you dodge that?"
Yeah, he says he can perceive him. I think that because he's his perception, his dodging, and his attacking is all based on timing, right? Obviously, I think Megami is an infallible person. I think his timing could just be wrong because he literally states just seeing him is near impossible, which would imply that it is possible. And then he attributes his whole strategy here timing. So I just think that him like not being able to land the attack is the timing thing. I don't think it's because Toji just massively increased his speed. I think it's just his timing thing.
Well, I don't care too much about the timing because one, I've already made the claim, obviously, that even if it's very hard to dodge him, but it's still possible, right?
Mhm.
If the possibility stems from the instances in where Toji is holding back and he is able to perceive him, whereas in the next panel, which
He's
was
holding back.
when he wasn't able to perceive him, it would just be the case that Toji isn't always using his full power in Shibuya, right?
Wait, Haram. Aside
I
from the
understand,
first scene,
and also what Megami is talking about is prediction, right? Prediction is a preemptive thing. It happens before actions occur within time.
Mhm.
If I predict where you're going to go before you even move, and then I get lucky with my guess, that doesn't mean I was actually able to see the speed of your attack with my eyes or sense it with any like sixth sense with like curse energy sensor or
Haram,
whatever. Even
Haram
though Toji
for
doesn't have that, he doesn't have the actual ability to sense him in the moment where he stabs him, and then one of his senses is failing him because his eyes
Now when
aren't
I'm
able to
done,
track his movements afterwards.
can you repeat that, Haram?
Also, when you said he was an
Can you repeat
infallible
that?
person, what did you mean by
Can you
that?
repeat that? Can you repeat that?
Okay. So you said Megami is an infallible person. I'll
No, no,
repeat
no,
it, but
no, no. Earlier,
you
earlier,
said
earlier.
something earlier. I wanna ask you some
No,
clarification.
it's
When
not
you
really relevant.
No,
I'll bring it up.
it is relevant. It is relevant because if
I'll bring
what
it
you
back
said
up
goes
later.
for
Can you just repeat what you said?
no, just go over this thing real quick. I
No,
just
I'm
want
not
to
gonna
answer
do that.
this real
I'm
quick.
not
Answer
gonna do
this
that.
real quick.
No.
When you say infallible, you don't literally mean incapable of being wrong at all, right?
You done? Can you answer my question?
Just, can you answer my question first? Because I'm gonna
No,
repeat it. I just want to make sure that
no,
you
no,
respond
I
to
don't
it.
want to forget. No, because I don't want to forget and then move on.
Okay, I'll
I'm
just
gonna
write
risk.
it down so I don't forget either. Then.
Okay, yeah, it's fine. You put in a question what I meant by infallible.
Okay. So what I'm telling you is right. Um, Prediction is something that happens prior to actual actions. A prediction could be
Mhm.
like predicting the stock market because you don't know what the stock market is going to
It's
be
not
tomorrow,
analogous.
right? How's that not
It's not.
analogous?
Because in this context, prediction is relative to physical things. What you're talking about is relative to data and statistics. A prediction regarding the stock market is
It
completely based
doesn't
off data
matter.
and
It doesn't matter.
statistics.
It's still analogous in the sense where it hasn't happened yet. That's all that matters for the analogy.
Wait, I don't disagree with that, but if you're trying to use that analogy as to say that, just like someone predicting the stock market is akin to someone predicting, this thing, it would depend on what you're meaning in the sense of, what in the sense of, it's prediction, so he can do it, it's preemptive, right? Or in the sense of it's reactionary based, because Megami is obviously moving reactionary based here. He's waiting for Toji to do the attack, and then he's going to do it. So obviously, to a degree, he does have to know when Toji did the attack. He does have to use perception. He does have to know that, hey, okay, Toji's just did the attack, and he's going for this position. So he has to know where and when he does the attack. So where's the attack going, and then when is it happening?
Okay, so if you're saying that he has to actually see his movements, I don't know if you're saying this exactly, but I'm just gonna address it in case you are saying this. If you're saying he actually has to see his movements for him to know where he's going for the prediction, that's not necessarily true. All it could simply be is when he is actually capable of perceiving his movements prior, right? He knows his exact attack patterns with
Wait.
like
What
we
are
can
you
say
talking about?
we can say we
Wait,
can
wait,
say
wait, 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 wait. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What do you mean
okay.
prior?
The bunny thing where I said like he pierces for the bunnies and Megami is able to like look in the direction to where the bunnies are getting pierced and notice that Toji's coming for him.
Wrong. How does that give an indication to where he's going to attack later?
Okay, it doesn't give him an exact indication of where he's going to attack later. However, people have combat styles and they have repetitive movements, right? If you see someone's movement, you might be able to predict, okay, they might go for this movement again.
Okay. Yes, I know it's a possibility, right? But how does he know Toji's combat style? He only saw 3 attacks, and because right now Toji's using piercing attacks, he doesn't use piercing attack. He
Oh, I
only
can answer your
does, I
question.
think,
I can answer your question.
yeah.
Yeah. So piercing one, he has done a piercing attack on Dagon before already. He's seen his movements against Dagon, and he's seen his movements here, right? So he's seen numerous times where Toji has swung or whatever, right?
No, he
If
hasn't.
Toji has ever once
No, he hasn't.
thrusted forward, which he has, right,
No,
against
he hasn't.
anyone. What do you mean he
He
hasn't?
has.
You're saying Toji has never
Uh,
thrusted into anyone
no. I've been
before
saying
the
no, you
sword?
hasn't for a while. No, I've been saying no, you haven't for a while. Toji only sharpens Playful Cloud nearing the end. He only sharpens it, and he doesn't do any attack. The only attack he does is to the head. He is dodging attacks that are directed towards the torso. Again, Megami would only have one sample size. He would only have one instance of,
That's
what's it
fine.
called? Toji attack. Yeah, then I'm proving to you. I'm asking you, how does that give him enough sample size is sample size big enough for him to get a combat style prediction, combat style
You
analyzation?
don't. Okay, so with sample size and all that stuff, people when they're doing statistics, not everyone has the greatest idea when it comes to statistics. We're not all the most knowledgeable in that field, right? None of us have statistics degrees.
Mhm.
So many times you'll notice in life, people will say this thing might be more likely because they've seen it happen even as small as one time, right? So you saying,
That
okay,
doesn't mean
well,
they're
his
right.
perception. Okay,
Doesn't
give me
mean
a
they're
second. Give me a
right.
second. You saying right that Megami could just be retarded when he's saying Megami would be retarded in saying that he's likely going to go for this type of movement when he's only done it once. He only has
That's
one
not what
instance for a sample
I. Oh yeah,
size.
yeah. That's what I'm saying.
To say that it's not as likely, I think that's ridiculous because
Why?
Megami isn't a statistician. He has never been shown to have like a statistics degree or anything,
Okay.
and that's something that happens all the time in real life. And even
Prove
then,
that.
none of
Prove
this
that.
matters all that
Prove that.
much
Prove
because
that. Prove that. Prove that. Prove
additionally,
that.
what we have to realize
Prove that.
is
Happens all the
Toji
time.
is someone who strikes at lethal areas such as the head, right? Or other areas. So if he's seen that, he might think, okay, he might stab me in my heart. So I'm just going to predict he's going to swing at my heart on a hunch. And it doesn't
Okay.
even matter what exactly he's doing for his prediction. He could predict Koji going for any type of movement, right? The fact that he's
Okay. So
predicting in general,
so
the main
okay.
point is the fact that he's predicting it in general. Before it even happens, he's saying that Toji is going to strike him in this
That's
position,
wrong.
this area, right? So I'm going to try to stop him before he kills me by making the ground shadow so he falls downwards, and then I'm going to grab him and then try to stab him, and then he gets blitzed. That's the point.
You done?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what my point was?
Yes.
What was it?
Okay, your point was multiple things. One, you said that he could have been one you could have said actually, if you want, you can just say it back to me. I don't want to butcher your argument. You can repeat it back to me if you want. I don't want to butcher your argument if I don't have to.
Okay. My argument was for Megami to consistently, accurately get a depiction of where Toji is attacking, he has to be able to see him to a degree, which is supported by the scan that he says. Just seeing him is nearly impossible. Okay? So Megami implies he can do it. He can do it. Right? So when I continue and further on by saying that the reason why I think that he's predicting most of these attacks and they're based on perception is because to know where something is headed, right? To know where something is headed, you have to be able to either have a basis for your beliefs on a consistency, like okay, he's commonly attacked in this area, so I'm gonna try to defend in this area because that's what I've seen of him. Or you can go off into intuition, right? I've seen him attack, or I just think he's gonna attack in the heart for literally no reason, right? And then you could also be like, okay, I'm actually seeing him attack, and I just saw him attack to my heart, or I'm seeing him try to stab my heart. Right. So would you agree that those are the three methods you could see,
Yeah,
or try to
no
predict
issue.
an attack? Okay. And you would agree that from what we've been told, the third one is the most likely, right? Because he already states he can see him.
I mean, none of them are more likely than the other, but I don't even think this matters. Whatever
Why?
method he's using to
Why?
actually, because I'll grant that he's already seen his movements before. I'll grant that if that's what you would like. I'll
No,
grant
that's
that. That's
not what
fine.
I would like. I
But
just want to know why he doesn't
I don't
want
think
to
I don't even think it matters if he's able to see him in prior instances, right? The main
Okay.
issue is in some instances he isn't able to see him. Sometimes he will be getting
Yeah, what
perception
instances?
boosts.
What instances?
The instance where he tried to stab him.
Okay, again, I told you that's a timing thing. If he's basing his react, because we know he can't physically react. We know he can at most only.
Holding on to him.
He said, okay, because
No,
he
but that's
says
the
it.
prior instance. That's not what he's holding on to him.
It's right before this.
It's stated right before this in relation to something else, like predicting when he's going to strike so you don't get killed. That's different
Yes,
from
yeah.
actually
Wait,
holding on to
Haram.
someone and then trying to swing. Why would you time a swing if you already have someone in your hands? Why not just swing on them right away?
Because
Doesn't
you're
make sense.
wait, because you're weaker than them. What the hell? Isn't that insane?
You're weaker than him, but what's the benefit to doing that?
So that you can time the fight, the end of the fight, if you're trying to stab him to kill him, obviously, or to try to win the fight, right? Predict if you can't see him regularly, it's really hard for you to see him. Then you have to use prediction to actually try to land hits on him because you can barely even react to him. What gives you the indication if you can barely react to him, right? That he can actually attack him properly. If you can barely even see him, and that's with time added on. A striking motion, right, is distinctly different from waiting for them to come to you, right? Getting that extra time for you to react. So if he can barely
Okay,
see
this
him
is
when Toji is giving him time to react, right, those few extra seconds, whatever it may be, right, it's obviously going to be harder to then lay out a strike in hopes for actually landing it, right? Unless you have some sort of assurance, which he does say earlier on, that he's going to try to time his movements.
okay. So when he's saying he's going to time his movements, again, he's saying that in response to predicting his movements, so we can put him in a situation where he can grab him, divert his attack, and then swing on him to kill him. If you have someone in your hands, it's harder
Thank
for
you
them
for
to
your
move because it's
Thank you for your
thank
concession.
me for my what?
Concession.
That's not a concession. I already granted that earlier he was trying to predict his attacks, right? And then put him in a situation where he could grab him and then stab him. But you're saying that he's predicting she's trying to like time something before stabbing him? No. Obviously the plan
No,
there
I'm saying he's
is
trying
to
to time
is
it correctly. The whole
time
point is right.
no, but
Time
you said he was
grabbing.
trying to time a stab. That's
Yeah,
gonna be
time
a
to
hedge.
stab. How is that?
Okay.
Okay, again, define what
I'm
hedging
saying
is,
if you
please.
drop that, if you're not
Define
dropping
what
that, that's not a
oh,
hedge.
yeah, define what hedging is.
Okay, I've already defined that earlier.
Okay, can you repeat it? I forgot.
Okay, when you change your argument or by adding on to something or like changing your proposition, an argument or a
Okay,
proposition,
me
or any
clarifying
claim
my
you make,
argument is
you
not
just
a hedge,
change it
bro.
by adding on to
Me
it or
clarifying my argument is not a hedge.
changing it. Therefore, your argument
Clarify
is
that
a hedge.
it's not a hedge.
Well, I agree. It's not a hedge, right? But because you have chosen not to like drop this, that's what I'm saying, right?
Wait, Haram. I'm just giving clarification about my argument. I'm not making any new claims that I didn't do before.
That's fine.
I'm saying that he messed up. That's what I've been saying from the beginning. You can ask people in the VC. It's a timing thing. So his reactions, right, are timing based because he knows he can't react or attack this guy properly. So his counter attack will have to be also timing based. If he does a stab a little too late or a little too early, he's gonna mess it up. If he does it a little too early, he's gonna mess it up. If he does it a little too late, he's gonna mess it up because
Wait,
of the
why?
nature of
Why
how
would
he's
stabbing him as quick as possible potentially mess it up? If he's holding on to him, right?
Mhm.
He has him within his arm's grasp, right? So Toji can't just immediately dart away because he would already be holding on to him, right? So Toji already has his arm extended, so he would have to retract his arm and then get his arm out of Megumi's grasp. So
He has
he's in a
two arms.
situation where he basically
two
can't
arms.
leave.
He
He
has two
can't move
arms.
and leave off that.
He has
So
two
wouldn't
arms.
it make
He
more
has two
sense? Wouldn't it make
He has
more
two
sense?
arms.
Okay, I
And you
understand
already
he has two arms. That doesn't matter. He
Wait,
still has to
yeah,
move.
and you can see that
away.
Toji's physically stronger, which like would also add an emphasis to whether or not he can accurately hold his arm down in place, like the timing, right? The timing of how long he has to hold his arm down,
He's
how much
stronger,
grip
but that
strength.
still requires more movement. That's still
Oh
more
my
movement. You
god!
have to pull him. You have to pull
No
your
shit,
blade out,
Sherlock.
or you have to let go of your blade, and then you have to get him out of your arm. Yeah, you have to get his arm
What do
off
you
of
mean
your
get
arm.
him? What are you talking? Get him out of your arm? What are you talking about?
You have to get his arm off of your arm so he's not holding on to you anymore, so you can leave. Right? Because if
Yes.
he's still
No.
holding on
Wait.
to
No.
him,
No.
what
I
he's
don't.
gonna do is
No.
he's gonna
Why?
stab him while he's
No.
getting away.
I think if he's stronger, I think he would quite literally just move Megumi's body with his arm that's moving. What? Why is it necessary that he has to do
Because
that?
because if he's
How?
still holding on to him, Megumi is still within the perfect distance to just strike at him and stab him and potentially kill him there.
That's what's okay. That is what we're talking about, Haram. What if if Megumi's holding his arm, right, just to hold him in place so he doesn't dodge, why can't when he let go of the sword or the staff that's sharpened, just swat away the attack? Because Megumi isn't holding his
Because that's additional
forearm and
movement that
hand
would be
down.
more difficult.
Why would that be more difficult?
It's possible that he could do that, right? But
No,
that's the
why
whole
would that be
point of
more
Megumi's
difficult?
plan, so he has an additional chance to swing on him. You saying that he needs to
Um,
time it correctly?
okay,
No, him
presupposing
waiting
that
is just gonna make it worse
uh,
because then he's gonna have more time to swat Megumi away and then run away, right?
that he's down. Rather,
And
that's presupposing the intent of Megumi's attack. I think the intent of Megumi's attack is simply just to get him from not dodging. I don't
it's
think it's
something that can be
getting him
easily
from
inferred. It makes the most sense.
Why?
Well, we're talking about your interpretation, and your interpretation doesn't seem to make much sense at all.
Yeah, Haram, you're presupposing the intention that this attack is supposed to neutralize all possible outcomes. I'm saying that it could just be that
No,
it's
I'm
supposed
not.
to
I'm just saying it puts him in a more advantageous position. That's all I'm saying.
Haram,
Uh,
wait, I don't disagree with the fact that the
I
attack
don't
is
even
supposed
need
to
to
put him in an
presuppose his
advantageous
intentions
position.
as a necessity. It can just be more likely because I definitely have a better basis for believing in what I'm claiming than what you're claiming.
Haram, first of all, I'm going to ask you to prove that, and then second of all, that's what's
I've
in
already given my
question.
justification for that.
Okay, what is it? Just one last time.
Okay,
What do you
so
think you're attacking?
you're saying
What do you
okay,
think you're
so
attacking?
okay, I'm attacking the fact that you're saying that he's trying to predict what time exactly when he should swing on him, right?
Mhm.
I'm saying that's what I'm attacking, right? I'm saying that interpretation doesn't make any sense because if Tochi's too fast for him, what is the best way of countering speed, right? You do things to neutralize the speed or make it so the speed isn't an issue, right?
Mhm.
Even in Demon Slayer, what people will do is they will literally hold someone in place by stabbing them. So they have to basically pull out the sword, maybe kill the person that's stabbing them, and then address the attacks that are coming at them
Not
at the same
analogous.
time.
That's
It
not
makes him.
analogous.
It's not exactly analogous because it's
What
not
do you mean
exactly the
exactly?
same
It's either
situation.
analogous or
However, it
disanalogous.
is analogous in the sense where you're nullifying the speed. You're making it easier to respond to
Yeah,
Kokushibo,
that's
right?
okay.
Now,
My
for
whole
the
point
case of
is,
Toji, if you're able to make him lose his footing, so he isn't able to just run right away because he's stuck in the shadow, and you're
Mhm.
holding on to him, so it's even harder for him to move away, and you're
Yeah.
trying to stab him, you're putting him in the worst position possible for him to actually use his speed. right?
Hmm?
So in that instance, it would just make the most sense to swing on him immediately. There's nothing he should be predicting here or trying to
Okay,
time, which would
why?
give him an additional advantage.
Why?
If he gives him
Why?
more time to react, all that's going to happen is Toji's going to have more opportunities to get out of that situation.
Haram, do you realize how that is not my point? My point isn't the fact that, if he swings, that he mistimed just the swing. My point is he could have mistimed all three things. It's a mistiming in general, right? We don't really know if he
He
timed
just has
the
to time
shadow
the
correct.
first thing.
No, he doesn't. What the hell?
Because
Where are you getting
because
that
I'm
from?
obviously of the belief that he has the. Wait, do you think he has the shadow set up like after Toji swings or before?
I think it's after. Or I don't really know, actually. I don't really know.
Well, I don't even care about all that necessarily. None of this even matters. I more so care about the perception blitz. And regardless of all that, right? Even if he gets the timing right for the first two things, right? The third thing, he is not going to time the swing. He's going to do. If you're saying he's not going to do it before, like the shadows, obviously, like obviously he's going to do it after. But after the shadows, I think we would both agree that he's just going to swing on Toji immediately after the shadows are there. He's gonna swing on Toji. After he grabs him and swings on, he's gonna swing on him right away.
He's going to swing on him when he has a good grip, but the thing is, if he preemptively
Okay,
strikes,
we
like you
agree.
said
We
earlier,
agree. We agree. Perfectly. Perfect.
what do you mean perfect? Yeah, presupposing he has a good grip. That's what I'm saying. I think if he's stronger than Megami, right? I don't know if he. I think Megami could have just preemptively striked before he actually got a good grasp on him, which is what I think let him get away. That's what I'm saying. I think it's a timing thing. Megami maybe didn't have enough time to get a good grip, rather than it just being a holding back thing. That's my whole point. Megami,
Um,
instead of you saying that Toji's holding back, I could just say the Megami just made an error. It's
what do you
equally
mean
as
get?
like,
What do you mean get a good grip? Don't you think it would make the most sense that he would just grab him and swing right away? Why wouldn't
yeah,
a better grip matter
for
that
an
much?
opponent,
His,
for an
his feet are
opponent that's
already submerged within the shadows. He doesn't have much ability to move at that point of time.
no, he does.
Obviously,
He
under
can just
Megami's
fling.
point of view,
No, that's just wrong. He can just fling himself backwards, which is what he does.
he can fling himself backwards. How does he fling himself backwards? He doesn't even push Megami at all.
We don't wait. We don't know what he does because he got blitzed, but we know he does just like run backwards, right? So obviously his speed is to the degree where he can either fling himself backwards, as in pushing a force on himself to the point where he can just take his foot out of the shadow, right? Because obviously the foot, you can take shit out of the shadow as you can put it in. It's not like your foot is there and you're eternally damned there, right? So if he can put it out, just take it out the shadow, right? Or which he obviously does. He does take his foot out the shadow. I think that it could just be an error on Megami's part. I think that him pushing himself off or flinging himself off could just be him taking his foot out the shadow with enough force that he can just get out of the grip, which is then what relates to whether or not Megami made the error with a grip. That's my point. Megami could have just made an error of the grip strength, right? He was too quick to just assume that Toji would be locked down in position with this amount of grip strength, right? He was too quick to that, and then he striked preemptively before he should have made sure that, hey, this amount of power is enough to hold this guy down. That's my point. And rather than him holding back, I think it could just be a strength thing, because obviously we agreed that he's stronger, but realistically, Megami wouldn't know how much stronger he is because he hasn't really engaged in a strength battle with Toji. So he has no way to realize because he has no cursed energy. So you're just at a loss. Instead of him holding back, it could just be him, making an error.
Okay, are you aware that like he literally doesn't even have his fingers locked around Toji when he's stabbing him, so he's not even gripping him like at all.
Yeah, he doesn't have his fingers blocked.
He's gripping. Actually, no. He's probably gripping his shirt. Now I'll tell you this, right?
He's
When you're
gripping his
in
arm.
like he's gripping what? His arm? No,
His
he's just
arm,
gripping his
yeah.
shirt.
What do you think that?
No, if he was
Are you
gripping
fucking
his arm, you would see his fingers extended. He wouldn't have a locked
No.
fist.
He's gripping
He's
the
stabbing
right side
his
of his arm. He's gripping the right side of his arm.
No, he's
yeah,
not.
yeah, that's right.
Look at it. He's just gripping the shirt. Watch.
Haram. If he was just gripping the shirt, then it wouldn't stop him.
Yes, it would because your shirt
Unless
is
you-
attached to your body because you have it worn.
Yeah, unless you think that he can't just rip out of fabric, which is one of the softest, which is one of the easiest materials. Unless you think superhuman beings can't just rip out of fabric, that shit is not going to stop him.
Well, it
the hell?
doesn't really matter because that's what Megami does anyways. We can observe that on panel.
This is
His fingers
presupposing
would be
the
extended
conclusion.
around his arm if he was holding his arm.
I'm not saying it's around his entire arm. I'm saying it's on the right side of the arm because we know superhuman beings can easily rip out a fabric.
Okay, you
So I
think it's
find it
gripping
really
his skin too, just not the entire like arm? You think his fingers aren't wrapped around his entire arm?
yeah. Obviously, they're not wrapped around his
Okay,
entire
sure,
arm.
that's fine. That doesn't matter that much. I don't think it like can you like okay, I want you to prove that it's difficult and it takes time to actually grip things. If you're in a life or death situation, you're just
That
gonna grip
wasn't
the
my
thing in
claim.
front of you and then stab as quick as possible. It's literally like
Mhm.
that scene in
Fine.
like Star Wars: The Clone Wars, where like a Jedi gets scared of General Grievous, so he just rushes out with his sword with his lightsaber, and then he screams at him, and he just swings at the first thing in front of him, and then he just gets killed. It's like a primal thing. You're just going to attack the thing in
You're
front
saying
of you
it's
and defend
intuitive. You're
yourself.
saying it's intuitive, which is just fucking retarded because we know his plan. If it is a plan, right, a plan to hold him down, that's obviously not intuitive. Because something intuitive is something you do unconsciously. You're being retarded. If he's intuitively going out of the safety of his own life to attack this guy, whoever, whatever it is, right? Obviously, it's not analogous to here because this guy, Megami, has made this plan to grip him to get him trapped so he can stab him. What are you talking about? What are you talking about, Haram? What are you talking about?
Okay, I'm not even just saying that it's intuitive. I'm also putting into question another thing.
Well, like what?
Okay, so I want you to prove that it's difficult to grip people. I don't think it would take that much time. I think it would be pretty
That
easy.
why? Wait, what in my thing? What's it called? Like
Because you're
makes
saying he would potentially take time to actually grip him, right?
it's not okay. I'm saying that grip. I'm saying that he made an error in
Also,
the timing of how strong he should grip him and for how long, right? If he didn't grip him hard enough for this amount of time, or he didn't get a good gauge on how hard he should grip, right? Then he wouldn't have the timing correct because he told you could get out of it. Told you could get out of it. It's a flaw. It's a flaw. That's my whole
okay,
point.
well, wait,
If he
let's
doesn't
say
have
the
a
flaw
good enough
exists. Let's say
grip,
the flaw exists. I ask you this: if the flaw exists, then he doesn't have a good grip on him, right? That means when Toji is within arm's length, literally within like fingers length of Megumi, he is able to move so fast that Megumi isn't able to perceive where he went. His eyes aren't able to track him.
sorry, repeat that. I'm responding to um
Okay, when
I don't
he
even
is
know what I'm
within
responding
when
to.
he's within fingers length of Megumi, even if he does a bad grip or a good grip, he is able to move so fast that Megumi's eyes aren't able to track him. Even if he gets the
Yeah.
timing down incorrectly, if he swings on him and the timing is poor, so Toji has a better opportunity to move there, he isn't able to see where Toji actually goes because
Yeah.
Toji moves so fast
No,
that his
he's
eyes
able to
get
see where he
fogged.
goes. No, he sees where he's go, but he doesn't realize the
That's
fact that he's
after,
gone
not
until he's
initially.
gone.
Just
Yeah,
initially.
I never made the claim that Megami can react to him right next to him. My only claim was Megami can react to him after having build-up. That's literally what he says. He says that he can react to him with build-up. Right? He says it's near impossible to, see him. So he can see him to a degree when he's farther away because we know
Okay, you've
Megami's
granted my position. I
distance.
think I think the conclusion can just follow now that Toji is not always going all out in Shibuya. Via this, right?
What?
If he's not always going all out in Shibuya, we can't quantify what exact power he's going to be at when he's fighting Dagon. So it's just an unquantifiable Toji at that point of time.
How did I grant your position?
Yeah. Okay, I just want to move on.
Um, You want? I mean, okay, I'll just leave this out there. What I agreed to is the fact that he can perception blitz Megami when he's really really close to him, right? To the point where Megami has to rely on timing to actually like block and react to his attacks, rather than actual just pure speed, his own speed, right? He has to rely on predictions. Um, and what I agreed to is that earlier on, what I agreed to is that Megami has a lot more time to react. Is when Toji's farther away, so he can do these reactions on his own when Toji's farther away, but not when he's close up. I never made that point, so I don't know what I'm saying, but
Okay,
yeah, we can move on.
that's
Yeah,
cool.
you're
That's
right.
fine. Okay, so I have Kenjaku. Okay. Do you agree that Kenjaku should be above Baki?
Why?
Yeah. So they all have this perception that they can't beat Kenjaku through conventional means. And conventional means is just going to be what the whole group would traditionally do, what they would be fine with doing. They're fine with jumping Sukuna, so they should be fine with jumping Kenjaku, right?
Mhm.
Gojo has seen Kenjaku up close. He's seen him run away from his attack. So Gojo himself knows exactly how fast Kenjaku is, right?
Mhm.
So they do have some perception of his speed, right? So they have all this, and they still make
Wait
the
a minute,
choice.
wait a minute, wait a
They
wait,
still opt.
wait
Hold
a
on.
minute,
They
wait a
still
minute.
opt to make the
No, no,
choice
no,
to
wait a minute,
assassinate them. I
wait a
think
minute,
that means they
wait
don't
a
have the
minute.
confidence. They
That's
don't
I'm gonna
think
put that
they
into
don't have the
question.
confidence to beat them in a head-on
I'm gonna
like
put that
fight.
into question. I'm gonna put that into question.
What specifically?
Do they have a perception on his speed? What are you talking about? When do they have that?
Yeah. Gojo's about to
What
fire an
chapter?
attack on Kenjaku, and then
What
he
chapter?
like 221.
221. Okay.
You obviously agree Toji equal to Maki, right? But also,
Wait.
can you also send like playful cloud like amping your speed? I don't remember if it only amps your AP or if your speed too.
Maximizes your physicality. Turn a while. No, I have a nice rest. I think you should pick your words more wisely. Yeah, they're about to be your last.
Okay, here's the thing.
Okay, let's see.
Mhm.
He runs away. Yeah, I don't know how you're gonna prove that Gojo was looking at Kenjaku because we don't know when Sukuna arrived to protect Kenjaku.
He says, "After all, they will be your last." He extends his hand, and he's obviously about to go and attack Kenjaku there. Maybe he then intercepts Sukuna, right? But he did have the intent to attack Kenjaku, and then we see the aftermath where Kenjaku is sliding away. Kenjaku tried to
Yeah,
move away to avoid Gojo's attack, right?
yeah. So what? Yeah. I don't disagree with the first part. Like Gojo tried to do an attack and Kenjaku slided away. But my whole point is, we don't know when Sukuna intervened because when Kenjaku slides away, the attack is already being launched, right? So when Kenjaku is sliding away, the attack is already being made. We don't know when Sukuna intercepted the attack, so we don't know if Gojo actually had time to look at Kenjaku moving away because Sukuna could have already been there. We don't really know.
Don't you think he can just sense his cursed energy, like how strong it is?
I think he can, but then it goes on to whether or not what's it called? He's willing to do that. Is he trying to do that?
Okay, don't you think you think Gojo isn't willing to actually sense how strong Kenjaku is if he's a major threat, and these guys might have to
Is he a
actually
major threat to Gojo?
he is probably going to either have to kill him there or in the future, right?
Is he a
And
major threat to
let's say,
Gojo?
hmm?
Is he a major threat to Gojo?
Is he a major threat to Gojo? Maybe he's not a major threat to Gojo.
Okay.
However, he could be a major threat to other people. That's important information. That's something Gojo would have to keep track of because
Well,
otherwise
no, because wait, no, because
he would literally
no,
be harming other
Haram, you're
people
wrong.
around
No,
him
Haram,
by
you're
putting
just
them
wrong.
in a
Haram,
less favorable
Haram,
position.
Haram, you're just wrong because Gojo thinks that Yuta can beat this version of Kenjaku, or Yuta can beat Kenjaku. He says that Yuta will, like he implies that Yuta, and from his perspective, from seeing Kenjaku in
It
the
doesn't
Shibuya
matter.
Station, he thinks Yuta can beat up that body. So again, he doesn't think that this like
Also,
version of
he said that
Kenjaku can beat
before
the
even
Penta.
seeing Kenjaku's speed. If I'm making the claim that he sees
Says,
Kenjaku's speed here, he's never had an
attack
interaction
that.
with Kenjaku prior
I've
where
already
he's
attacked
actually
that.
seen Kenjaku
I've
move,
already attacked
like
that.
to avoid
Already
an
attacked
attack or
that. Do
whatever.
you want to move on, Haram? Do you want to move on?
Well, how did you attack that? How did you
I'm
attack
not
that?
gonna repeat myself. I'm not gonna repeat myself.
No. All you said was you put into question whether or not he would want to see him there, and then you said, okay, he thinks Yuta can beat Kenjaku. He knows about Yuta's power, but he doesn't necessarily know about
Are you
Kenjaku's
done?
power. And
Are you
even
done?
beyond that, I'll just cement my point even further by just saying he can see Kenjaku's like power with the six eyes. So he can see it
I
with the six
don't.
eyes. So if
Oh
he does
my
look at
god.
Kenjaku, which I've already made the argument that he would actually sense his power, and he would, or maybe even look at it too with his eyes, right? He knows how strong Kenjaku is in terms of cursed energy. So he knows his speed and all that stuff.
Wait, can you repeat that? Sorry, I wasn't really listening.
Okay. So one, again, he can track him. He can track him with cursed energy signature. So I've already given an argument as to why he would track him. And the six eyes should also allow him to see like how strong his cursed energy is when he's obviously applying it. However, right, if he's not looking at him or sensing him, which is obviously the claim that you've made, then he won't actually be able to
I
see
didn't
it.
make
But
that claim.
I think
I
he is
didn't
looking
make
at
that
it.
claim. You a fucking retard. I didn't make that claim.
You made okay, no, you like questioned if he's actually looking at Sukuna.
Mm-hmm.
No, not
Yeah.
Sukuna. Uh
At Ghetto, or
fucking
sorry, at Kenjaku.
Kenjaku.
Hmm? So I
Yeah,
didn't
you
make
were
the claim.
well, you didn't make okay. You did make the claim that you were no, sorry. You
You're
question
fucking
whether or
retard.
not he's
Holy
looking at
shit.
Kenjaku. You question whether or not he's looking at Kenjaku.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Yeah.
and then repeat the latter half of, or the earlier half, because the latter half is this. What was the earlier half of what you just said?
Yeah, basically, he can see his power, right? He can see how strong he is and how fast he
Great.
moves. If he's looking at him
No, we
and
can't.
choosing to sense his power, and I think it makes more sense that he would than wouldn't in this situation. I've already given my argument for that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Do you want to conclude on this point? I feel like I already kind of refuted the fact that if Gojo's preconceived notion of Kenjaku is the fact that he thinks there's a Yuta level below, like massively below Yuta, that Yuta just gonna beat him up again. I don't know why he would still consider him a big enough threat to where he'd have to sense his curse energy again.
Okay, one, you never made that claim initially.
I did.
However,
I
I don't even know if he could even sense his cursed energy in that moment, because I don't think we can prove that he was applying cursed energy to his body in that particular moment, or if Gojo could
That
actually
doesn't matter, but I
sense
said no.
his cursed energy
Wait,
quality in that moment.
wait. That doesn't matter due to the fact that he still makes a claim on his power. So obviously, knowing Gojo, he would have to get a sense of, what's it called, his power, because obviously
But
Gojo's
if
not
he
going
just
to
has
go up.
confidence in Yuta,
Confidence in Yuta against someone who he doesn't know the power of. That's kind of confidence off
he
of
could just
nothing.
be
I don't think it's.
optimistic. I mean,
Yeah, I know. Wait, optimistic of what?
sometimes I
Optimistic.
have hopes for other people,
Are
whether
you
they apply
Gojo?
to
Okay,
reality, whether they'll
prove that
actually
your
fulfill those hopes,
characteristic applies to
are
Gojo.
a whole different
Prove that this
concept
characteristic
entirely.
applies to Gojo. Yeah. Like make it even like likely that this characteristic is on Gojo. Like this characteristic of
Characteristics of
dumb
Gojo?
optimism. Mm-hmm. Prove that Gojo has this
You want
characteristic.
me to prove that Gojo is optimistic about his student? Sure, I'll do that. No issue.
No, that wasn't my claim. Okay, we can move on.
You said that characteristic of hope, right? I can show you that. I have no issue with showing you that.
Okay, of hope to the degree where he's going to make claims founded with zero evidence. Yes.
Yeah, sure. That's easy. Sure. That's
Okay.
easy.
Yeah, claims with zero evidence, by the way. Zero evidence.
Okay, it doesn't even necessarily have to be zero
No,
evidence.
it does.
It could just be something where he has even as little as partial evidence, such as Yuta.
It does.
Because in this
Partial evidence
situation,
is a likelihood
in
raiser.
this
Partial
situation, he
evidence is a
does
likelihood raiser.
have
Retail.
evidence of
Partial
Yuta's
evidence is
power, right?
likelihood
Because
raiser.
we're already of this agreement that he's seen Yuta's power, so we would have evidence on how strong Yuta is.
Wait,
So,
I don't disagree.
so in
Wait,
this
wait.
situation,
I don't
he doesn't
disagree
have
that he has
zero
a
evidence
gauge on
entirely.
Yuta's
If you're
power.
talking
I never
about zero
disagreed with
evidence
that.
for Kenjaku,
What are you
sure.
talking about? I never disagreed that he had a gauge on Yuta's power. You fucking retard. I said that.
Look at this. He has no way of knowing if they'll be as strong or even comparable to him eventually in the future, right? However, he has
why are you making that claim?
eventually they will
Why are you
be,
making that
right?
claim? Why are
Because
you making
Gojo
that
is an
claim?
optimist,
Why are you
right?
making that?
He
Why are you
wants to
making
make
that claim?
he
Why
has
are you
hope
making
for a
that
better
claim?
future.
Okay, we can move on. Re-question this. And you just didn't, like, you kept on talking because you're a fucking retard.
Okay, sure, I already explained that.
Okay, yeah,
Can we stop with the ableism, please?
No, we can't, because I
Yeah,
asked
this is
him
very rude, especially because Haram's actually autistic.
Yes, it definitely is.
Oh, yeah. So essentially, Kenjaku over Maki equal to Toji.
Maki.
Right? Send the whole playful cloud shit, and then Edo Toji's unquantifiable, so there's no way to prove
What the
that
fuck?
Dagon is on that
What?
level.
Wait, Toadi's unquantifiable. What does that even mean? What the hell does that even mean?
Yeah. One more second. Okay. Do you agree?
Can you send
Do you agree? Hold on. Do you agree that Jogo has better curse energy quality than Dagon?
No.
Okay. Nanami says it. What's your contention?
It wouldn't send the scan?
Nanami says Jogo's on a whole nother level to Dagon.
Okay. In reference to what?
I think it's curse energy quality because he hasn't
No,
seen
no,
anything
in reference to in reference to a whole nother level above or below?
above.
Why?
That's obviously the implication, the logical implication, because when we see right? That the offer is portraying Jogo to be like this fearsome figure where
That's in
he's
question.
drawn with a bunch
I'm
of
gonna put that in
shadows on
question.
him as though
I'm gonna
he's
put
some
that in
menacing
question.
figure. Obviously,
Yeah, I'm gonna
what's
put
going
that
to
in question
happen?
too.
Obviously, what's going to happen since now Beto is saying, "Come on, are you kidding me? This
I'm
is
gonna put that
something
into
that's
question too, whether or
pleasurable.
not it's obvious or
Isn't.
not.
Can you give me a fucking second? Shut the fuck
No,
up.
no, I
Relax.
can't.
Shut
I
up.
can't. No,
Let
I
me get
can't.
my argument. How are you going to put something into question if I'm trying to explain it to you as we're speaking?
You've said like 30 things
I'm not
within
saying
one
that
sentence.
much. I'm not even shotgunning. Anyone can do this. Relax.
I know you're
It's
not.
not
Wait, you're not shotgunning because I'm stopping you every single time you make a dumbass, retarded
This
presupposition.
isn't a shotgun.
So
This would be a shotgun if it would be so many
I'm
arguments you
not
couldn't
saying it
possibly
is.
respond to any of
I
them.
just said it wasn't. I just said it wasn't. You fucking retard. You fucking autistic retard.
Yes, but
God,
you're saying
please
that I'm
don't.
trying to.
I
I'm
wish
not
they
doing
killed
that at
you.
all. I'm
I
not even
wish they
close to
killed
doing
you. I
that.
wish they killed you in the camps, bro. I don't know why you're still alive.
Okay, so look at this. Now
Hey,
Beto was
hey, can we
literally
stop that,
upset
please?
over the fact that he's looking at Jogo. Like he doesn't like that Jogo's there. Obviously,
Hey, show
Jogo
me
is
that.
strong
Show
is
me that. Show
stronger.
me that. Show me
Otherwise,
that. Show me that. Show
the
me that.
interpretation of
Prove
him
that.
being
Prove
weaker
that.
wouldn't
Prove
be a
that.
good thing.
Okay, prove that
Wouldn't,
as well.
wouldn't be a bad thing. Sorry.
That. Are you done? I've just put
Yes.
so many burdens on you, bro. I don't even know if you know what you have to prove.
Even then, we can observe it through the feats. Nani is able to literally take care of the fish that Dagon shoots out in his domain. However, Jogo literally incinerates all of them in one attack. Every single person gets killed
Does
in a single
Dagon's
attack.
fist scale to
The
him?
other people literally were
Dagon's fist
able to
scale to him?
respond to Dagon's attacks and take them
Do
out.
Dagon's
They
fist
can't
scale
do anything against
Dagon's
Jogo's
fist scale
attacks.
to them?
He's literally drawn with a bunch of dark shading as though he's some
Do
menacing
Dagon's
figure.
fist scale to
It's
him?
all
Do
a
Dagon's
logical
fist scale
implication
to
that he's
him?
above.
Okay, I put everything into question. Do you want to move on or not?
What name everything you put into question.
No. No.
You can't just talk at the same time as me and act as though like
Hey,
you're putting so many things into
hey, you need
question,
to learn how
and
to
I'm
shut
not
the fuck up.
actually doing
You
my
need to
job
learn
as a
how to shut the
debater
fuck up.
to like
You
respond
need
to
to learn
your
how to
like
shut the fuck
burdens
up.
that you placed
Wait,
upon me.
Haram,
When
prove
you aren't
that.
even
Shut the
doing
fuck up.
your job to actually make sure I can hear
Prove
what
that,
you're saying.
Pete. I definitely did. I made sure to talk. I'm a person
Is
who
this
wants
just
to
some
talk around
stupid
it clear.
tactic you have where you're just gonna talk at the same time as me and put like burdens on me while your mic is quiet so I can't actually hear what you're saying and then
Yeah,
act
this
like
is
I didn't
against
do
the Nani
anything as a
tactic.
debater?
Is that
Is,
what you're
is that
saying?
really my fault that you made no effort to make sure I could actually hear what you're
Haram.
saying?
No. I've made copious amounts of efforts in this entire
And
debate.
why wouldn't you just
Neither
speak
of
when
you
I was
speak.
done speaking? That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
Because like you said earlier, I stopped you from shotgunning me. Every single time you made a claim in one sentence, by the way, I think you made 3 or 4 claims in one sentence. First of all, I
It's
don't
not a
even know,
shotgun.
like, that's really hard to do, right? But I know it's not shotgun because I stopped you. Because
No.
I made it
Even
so that
even
you
if you
wouldn't
didn't stop
overwhelm.
me, that wouldn't have been a shotgun. A shotgun would have been if I spammed so many arguments you couldn't possibly respond to it. Right? If I started
Yes.
saying apples are good, red, all that stuff, if I started like literally reading for the vote I don't know, a dictionary, and then I just use 30
Yeah,
different
if
arguments
you
for
want
why
to
apples are better than
comprehensively
oranges,
respond to
that
it,
would be a
it's
shotgun.
subjective.
And if I just started like speed packing or some shit while I'm saying that, then that would be a shotgun because I'm saying so much stuff to you that you can't possibly respond to it all. I'm saying very small stuff and short stuff which isn't that hard to respond to, and
It's
you're acting as though
subjective,
I'm
Haram.
shotgunning. I'm not.
It's subjective.